Tonight, Democrats on the defense as their own Russian scandal widens. An FBI informant working undercover at the time of the controversial Uranium One deal is now free to talk. The Justice Department has lifted a gag order so he can tell his story to lawmakers who want to know more about the Obama administration's uranium deals with Moscow and about the cash that flowed to the Clinton Foundation amid the deals. The White House says Democrats have a big problem on their hands.
I think this further proves if there was anyone that was colluding with the Russians to influence the election, look no further than the Clintons, look no further than the DNC. This is hypocrisy at its highest level, and I think it may be a new low in American politics. Everything that the Clinton campaign and the DNC were falsely accusing this president of doing over the past year, they were actually doing themselves, it turns out, and I think that this is a major scandal for the Democrats.
The ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee sees the Uranium One probe as part of an effort to take attention away from the special counsel's investigation into the Trump team's possible coordination with the Russians.
This had to be orchestrated with the approval of the Speaker of the House. And so this is a partisan effort to distract. It's a partisan effort aligned with what the White House has been urging and Fox and Breitbart, and which there was no consultation with the Democrats in Congress. And I think that tells you all you need to know about whether this is in good faith or not.
Dana, big news today, and a lot of people back and forth on this, including the White House taking a position, coming out and attacking. You saw with Sarah Sanders there.
Yeah, so it's a different way to deal with it. So usually with a special investigation, you just basically you say, well, we'll let the Justice Department handle it. But we're in a different sort of world right now. And I think anything that the White House can do to suggest that there was a problem on the Democratic side, if it comes to Russia, that probably benefits them politically, because it just makes everything super confusing and looks like everybody's bad. I mean, I cannot believe how many people in Washington were dealing with Russia. But I also think that this deal, this Sisyphus, whatever we want to call it, the Committee for Foreign Investment in the United States, it is 9 different departments all looking at something. So it wasn't as if Hillary Clinton just signed it, just did it herself. I am curious about this informant. It's unusual for a gag order like this to be lifted, and apparently this came directly from the president and the speaker putting pressure on the FBI, who complied. And so we don't know this person's identity yet. I understand it's a male, so we'll call him a man, but we'll hopefully find that out soon. And then I don't know if he'll have any additional information or if he'll just be more part of an ongoing investigation. I don't think it will be determinative of any sort of wrongdoing.
Sure.
But it'll just be more of a investigative step. Yes, not the conclusion.
But such a very different approach. You're so right. With the juxtaposition in place here in terms of how, Bush administration with you at the helm, different than what we saw today. But nevertheless, they were under attack, Greg, for quite some time, saying that everything was untoward with respect to the election, with Russian collusion. And now you see the layers peeling back. And in fact, with the gag order being lifted to say, OK, here, you want some transparency? There you go.
I love how the media is looking at this. It's like they're trying to tell us that this is nothing after telling us that a minor meeting was something, but somehow this is nothing. It's as if they're showing us an apple and telling us it's a banana.
Great analogy.
A little CNN humor there. I do feel bad for Hillary. After all, it is her birthday today, and I think we should all go to Del Frisco's and get her some yellow cake. Anyway.
That is
our uranium joke.
Exactly. But
delicious
it's funny.
Cake,
She thought she was going to be celebrating her birthday in the White House, but it seems like it might be closer to the big house.
Oh.
We'll be right back.
He worked on that all afternoon. Okay.
And it paid off.
We loved it. The yellow cake was my favorite. So Jesse,
yes.
Where do you go from here? If you're, President Trump and his advisors, what do you do in terms of, because you want to maintain the propriety and the sanctity of an investigation, while at the same time giving a bit of a statement to say, listen, this is what's going on. The investigation is going forward, letting the American people know and the press that you're being transparent, that you're not trying to cover up anything. There is no collusion to cover up anything.
Right. I think the president's done the right thing so far. He personally asked for this gag order to be lifted. It's odd because his own FBI and Justice Department have been stonewalling on a few previous Clinton scandals. So I don't know how this is all going to play out, because I think there are people within the administration, FBI and the DOJ, covering their own tracks, which is very suspicious. I want to take issue with something Congressman Schiff said. Congressman Schiff, the Democrat, blaming Fox News for this.
Yeah.
This was the Hill paper that broke the story, not Fox News. I want to clear that up. I'm very interested in what the whistleblower
Blame
is
it on
going
the
to
Fox.
say.
That's what everyone does.
I mean, everybody else does. Why not? But, you know, I want to know why he was gagged. I mean, President Obama has a history of gagging whistleblowers, from Benghazi to Fast and Furious to Bergdahl. I want to hear why he was gagged. I want to hear how the Russians were trying to curry favor with the Clintons. I'd like to know when this Foreign Committee on Investment, if they were made aware of this. If they weren't made aware of this, why not? Or if members of the committee who voted to approve the sale had any idea there was bribery going on with the Russians. So all those things, I think, are going to lead to very interesting explanations. I want to do a little fact check on Juan. I'm going to play the ombudsman for the show, because yesterday he was saying that all this money flowed into the Clinton Foundation way before any of this happened. Not true, Juan. Records show 9 investors in Uranium One gave $145 million to the Clinton Foundation prior to, during, and after the vote on the sale. Want to make that clear.
Can I respond?
In a minute.
Okay.
In 2010, as while all this was going on, Bill Clinton went over to Moscow and was paid $500,000 to give a speech. And while he was over there, he met with Putin. What did he say to Putin? Why was he also trying to meet with a uranium official? All of those things I want to know. I think the bottom line is this is about selling out America. You know, why can we give 20% of the uranium to the Russians, but Americans can't have a tax cut? It's just not fair.
Really?
Juan,
That's equivalent?
Juan, your rebuttal to the ombudsman, self-appointed?
Well, first of all, as I tried to explain to you yesterday, the United States really did have an effort to try to infiltrate Russia's nuclear activity, to try to gain some control and influence in it. But the second thing to say is, of the 9 major contributions to the Clinton Foundation that came from the effort that the Russians were making to bribe, control, influence Americans, most of it, I think 135, came from one donor. And that donor's contributions came years before Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton were involved, and certainly before Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State.
You know why that came in then, Juan? It was the spring when Hillary was supposed to be president. Remember, she was primarying against President Obama.
Well, you can make
Everybody
that
thought
case.
Hillary was going to be president. Maybe that's why they were given the money then.
She's a prominent
Turns out
American.
she was Secretary of State.
Well, she was also
Still
a former First Lady, but it's not the case, Mr. Ombudsman, that you're right. But you hurt yourself. I'll leave it there and let the blood flow.
Okay.
But I wanted to
I don't need a
respond
Band-Aid, Juan.
to the House of Horrors, because you mentioned all the houses except the outhouse, but the House of Horrors is where I think Republicans think they have Hillary Clinton at the moment, that she is being bombarded. Personally, I didn't know Hillary Clinton was this important. I thought she lost the election, and they're still looking for a bad guy.
So did I, yet she's still campaigning. Hey, I'd be happy for her to go away.
Oh, no, you would.
Entertainment.
No, Republicans, listen,
like, what
Republicans need a horse to whip, and on the Democratic side, I guess Obama must be busy.
You should not be referring to her as a horse.
Oh, stop. Thank you.
I wouldn't
Didn't you
do that.
say you were killing a horse yesterday?
Yes,
All right, let me help you, Juan.
All right,
We're
so
going to
here's-
segue out of that.
here's
You
the thing.
burned yourself right there.
Oh, I did?
We're going to do this other part.
Oh,
I'm going to come
okay.
to you
Go right
first.
ahead.
It's going to be so fun.
Okay.
Meanwhile, on the dossier front, the Democratic denials are piling up. President Trump calling out his former opponent for reportedly knowing nothing about her campaign's funding of research to harm Mr. Trump's candidacy.
Hillary Clinton totally denied this. She didn't know anything. She knew nothing. All of a sudden it found out. What I was amazed at, it's almost $6 million that they paid, and it's totally discredited. It's a total phony. I call it fake news. It's disgraceful.
Fake news. Did you know that?
Yeah, we did, Greg. You know who else doesn't buy that the secretary only learned about the dossier after it was published? Oh, her former campaign spokesman. Listen.
You have said previously in the last 24 hours you don't believe Hillary Clinton knew about this either. Is that right?
Oh, I don't know. I
don't
haven't
know.
asked. I haven't spoken to her. Well, I mean, she may have known, but the degree of exactly what she knew is beyond my knowledge.
Ooh, that was awkward. Someone sounds like they don't want to test a lie later. Okay, so Juan, what do you make of that?
Well, look, I think he doesn't know. And here's the thing. She said she didn't know, and that if she had known, she wished they had used some of this information about potential relationships between the Trump campaign and the Russians in terms of getting the message out, advertising, making it plain what was going on. And by the way, let me just tell you, a huge Democratic lament, Obama. Obama knew something was going on, never said a word. And people are like, oh, so you assumed Hillary was going to win? Who's to blame here? But I just wanted to pick up on something that comes out of this, which is, to me, we have two separate worlds. You know, it's like Venus and Mars, men and women, Republicans and Democrats. And it's like two different stories, so much so that now in the Senate Judiciary Committee, they've even stopped working together. And Dianne Feinstein, the Democrat from California, says, I'm going to do my investigation. And Charles Grassley, the Republican chair of the committee from Iowa, says, I'm going to do my investigation. And we'll get together when we come back to Trump and Russia. But for now, we're going our separate ways. Same thing in the House, all these committees. Devin Nunes, I thought he was gone. Now he's back again working as what looks like a stand-in for President Trump. And as Jesse just said, whoever heard of the president directing the Department of Justice and the FBI with regard to whether somebody has a confidentiality agreement? Do you think that President Trump has a stake in this fight?
There are also two worlds, too, though. There are two worlds.
Right.
One of the world is the mainstream media, and the rest of the world is America, in the sense that the media is not excited over this story. It's Pulitzer-prizing turf, but unfortunately, it's not about Trump. Whereas America would probably be interested in this, but the media is like saying, no. If it doesn't involve DT, forget it.
You know what? The New York Times just went off. I mean, went off. Maggie Haberman and others.
Haberman.
She's special.
What?
I'd say, no, she's special.
Okay, I don't know why.
She's different.
Someone
She's
you
good.
like? Okay,
Yes.
all right. Well, anyway, she went off at Mark Elias. Right?
Yes.
Because they said that Elias, who apparently is the one who paid the check to Fusion GPS, lied to them.
Yeah.
So I don't see how you would say, oh, the media, if this wasn't about, the media is hiding something for Hillary. That's not the case.
Actually, it is, because her friend Stephanopoulos on ABC this morning only gave this story, uranium, 30 seconds. You know how much time he devoted to the Trump Tower meeting?
Well,
10 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's
10
when it was
minutes.
new.
It's a big discrepancy.
A meeting that was driven by the questionable dossier that they paid for.
Yeah, I also want to take issue as the ombudsman
They built this.
with something else Juan said the other day, which I found totally inaccurate.
Go ahead. There's still blood on the floor.
You said that the dossier, besides the whole salacious thing,
Yes.
was mostly true. Well, I actually looked at the dossier, and here are some of the findings, Juan.
Certainly. By the way, do not bring up anything about women and beds.
I wouldn't. No, that was the part that's obviously false.
All right.
This is what it says. The Kremlin supplied Trump with a regular flow of intelligence about Democrats. Was that true?
I don't know.
Trump was offered various sweetener business deals by the Kremlin, but turned them down. I don't think that's true. Also, Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, was the point man for meetings with Kremlin officials in the Czech Republic. Never been to the Czech Republic. And Trump's team used moles within the DNC to hack the DNC along with the Russians.
Never proved substantiated.
Those all are erroneous. So I don't see how you can sit here and say the Trump dossier is mostly true and all that I just read you isn't.
All right, Ombudsman, rest your case. What do you know?
Well, I do think that the White House is smart to talk about this, because to your point, that if the White House had not mentioned it, if President Trump had not talked about it in the interview with Lou Dobbs on Fox Business, then it wouldn't have even gotten 30 seconds of coverage on Good Morning America or other places. But remember, most people are getting their news now from social media. The majority of people get the majority of their news from social media. So it does get a little polarized on both sides. So whenever this investigation is finished, I have a feeling that most people have already made up their minds.
So true. I mean, but that's the thing. They've already got it baked in.
And who's winning in all this is Putin, because the whole point of this was undermining an American institution, and we are undermining ourselves over this story. And we
I think that's the big picture there.
Yeah.
All right, we wrap that up. Next, the Trump administration taking action today to address America's growing opioid epidemic. The president sharing a very personal story of addiction in his own family. Hear all about that ahead.
The Trump administration taking action to address the deadliest overdose crisis in American history. Today, President Trump declared the epidemic a public health emergency in a bid to redirect federal resources and loosen regulations to combat widespread abuse.
More people are dying from drug overdoses today than from gun homicides and motor vehicles combined. This epidemic is a national health emergency. We can be the generation that ends the opioid epidemic. We can do it. Each of us has a responsibility to this effort. We have a total responsibility to ourselves, to our family, to our country, including those who are struggling with this addiction.
Action will include a massive advertising campaign targeting youth to avoid prescription drugs and more research funding for opioid alternatives. The president shared a very personal story during his announcement at the White House earlier.
One of the things our administration will be doing is a massive advertising campaign to get people, especially children, not to want to take drugs in the first place. I learned myself. I had a brother, Fred, great guy, but he had a problem. He had a problem with alcohol. And he would tell me, don't drink. Don't drink. He would say it over and over and over again. And to this day, I've never had a drink. And I have no longing for it. I have no interest in it. If we can teach young people and people generally not to start, it's really, really easy not to take them.
Such a personal story.
I thought that was probably the most powerful moment when he talked about his brother.
Yeah, and if you've heard him, speak about his brother and the impact that it had on his life, you really see that this is something that was such a formative experience for him. It's really helped dictate kind of the course of his life, his conduct, some of the choices that he's made that he has really stuck to. He listened to the advice of his brother. They're extremely close, and the loss of his brother really deeply affected him. He was very saddened by it, very hurt and distressed. And so this is where you get to see sort of peel back the layers of the President Trump, bravado and the larger-than-life figure to say, this is the heart, this is the family man in there who really was pained at the loss of his brother. And I believe, honestly, that's why he really wants to do this and champion this cause and put this forward so that other families that are dealing with substance abuse or polysubstance abuse don't have to suffer in the way that his family did.
Do you think, Greg, that this is one of those moments where you say we're going to wipe out opioids forever, just like the war on drugs in the 80s, and then 20, 30, 40 years later, same thing?
Yes, because the war on illegal drugs failed, and the war on legal drugs will fail as well. Jordan Peterson, I interviewed him yesterday, made a key point. He's a clinical psychologist, deals with a lot of patients. The question isn't why there are so many people on opioids. The question is, why aren't all of us on them?
I wish you would.
This drug directly affects your pleasure centers. It creates the same sensation you get from great achievement, from falling in love, from success.
Like endorphins.
Yeah, it's dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
So no wonder that people are easily addicted to it. But if you demonize this, because people are looking at this to fulfill their lives because they're not getting a fulfillment where they are, and if you demonize this drug and you criminalize it, you're gonna do three things. You're gonna punish people who are legitimately in pain, the cancer patients that need these drugs. You create a police record for a lot of men and women who now can't get real jobs and fulfillment, so instead they just take more drugs, and you drive addicts to the street. So I think it's great that we're trying to solve this. These are a lot of people dying, but I think it has more to do with creating drug delivery devices that one can handle, and also the knowledge of how to use these drugs, but also addressing the fundamental vacuum in our society where people can't find fulfillment. And so where they find their joy in life in a lot of these towns is this drug, because they're not getting it out of their job. They're getting it out of this pill. And those pills are great.
That happens with veterans, too.
Yes, exactly.
They come home with a brown bag filled with prescriptions and pills, and they're like, best of luck to you, thank you for your service, but it's not dealing with the emotional issues at the core that are causing that void and that emptiness, which is then they self-medicate and become addicted.
And a lot of that is because it's a cheaper alternative than getting operations and surgery and physical therapy. Dana, he's talking about a massive nationwide advertising campaign.
Right.
Maybe similar to a Nancy Reagan say no to drugs. How effective do you think that could be?
Well, look, I was a kid that grew up during the Just Say No campaign, and it actually helped me. I mean, partly, too, also I had parents that had me focused. You know, I was in everything from the bell choir to the speech team, you know, and the rodeo, whatever. I did all that stuff.
Your life was filled.
And I wanted achievement, and that feeling of dopamine, I imagine, is like why people want to run marathons. They get that feeling. I don't even run errands, so I don't know that really. But I thought the speech was very, it was direct and detailed. It was inspirational and aspirational. And I think the other thing I would add to the concerns about the criminalization piece that Greg mentioned is that President Trump said something today that's very important. He's directing the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, to do this massive public-private partnership to try to find new drugs. So basically, it's like putting a man on the moon. Mm-hmm. He's asking America's scientists and the achievers of the world to get together to find something that will address pain that doesn't come with the addictive properties of opiates. And that actually, if it can be achieved, in addition to trying to tell kids, you don't need to do this in your life, you can have all the fulfillment you need without it, then don't even go down that road. I think the ad money, I don't know, should it be it could be well spent, possibly, but I think that him directing the NIH to do that is probably the most effective part of it.
Right, that's the silver bullet.
Hopefully, if it will work.
Juan, can Democrats get on board with this?
I don't think so, because of a lot of the things that Greg said, which are, you know, the emphasis on criminalizing this behavior is just going to put more people in jail. And people in the Black, Latino community know how devastating this has been. So I don't think this is going to help. And let me just say, the real news here was we all expected that he was going to declare this to be a national emergency. And that would have meant more money going into trying to help people. And by the way, I think it's much more mental health services, therapy, and the things like that, giving people a sense of purpose and mission in life that Greg was talking about. That money's not there with a national health emergency right now. It's not a national emergency, period. And the second thing, he's got so many openings. He's got openings at the Office of Drug Control, Secretary of HHS, Tom Price is gone, remember. DEA, open slot. So all the various agencies that would be coordinating right now, they're missing anybody who can be in control. But my big concern, I think that we have to realize that Say No to Drugs did not work for most of America. And the idea of criminalizing drug activity, I think it's a self-inflicted pain.
Yeah, it might be time to start getting more creative. The far left has the art of the tantrum down pat when it comes to anything Trump. What do you hear what some of them have planned for the upcoming anniversary of the president's election next?
All right, according to Newsweek, which still exists.
No way.
Yes. Thousands of concerned citizens will commemorate the one-year anniversary of Donald Trump's election by screaming helplessly to the sky. Screaming helplessly to the sky. I'm not kidding. It's both sad and fantastic. Sadtastic, if you will. The November 8th event, which some 4,000 Facebook users have already RSVP'd, might be the most energy they expend that day, so good for them. The event will be held at 9 locations as a reminder that they aren't alone in their year-long rage bender. While accomplishing nothing, hopefully this comical eruption of pathetic desperation will make them feel better. Everyone could use a good cry now and then. And I salute them, for with their screams, they admit the roots behind their rage. Pure emotion no longer tethered to rational thought. This action reflects the broken, fragile psyche of the modern adult toddler, appearing physically fully grown, but emotionally stunted. I also wish to thank them for congregating in specific places that will leave the other parks, streets, and shops free for one afternoon from their repetitive moaning. Although I might stop by just to serve them some free refreshments. If I remember correctly, Gerber's makes a great sweet potato puree.
Eat it.
No.
Why not?
I haven't had Gerber's in a while. Juan, I got to go to you first.
God, I hope that's not contagious.
Did that feel good? Did it feel good?
Well, look, you know
Not
what?
for me.
You know what I had to push down last year, right? I had to be an adult. I mean, I couldn't. Jesse would have leapt on me and beat me because we won, you dog. No, okay. So now people get to scream a little bit.
The thing is, I don't see why they can't turn around this and make this a positive. Dana, we have to admit, everybody has learned more about government under Trump because there's so much conflict.
It's a national civics education.
Best poli-sci class ever.
That's true. For example, wasn't it Tom Perez, the DNC chair, who just yesterday said that the Electoral College wasn't a part of the Constitution? Actually, it was. We all learned that.
Get him, Jesse.
November.
Come on, Ombudsman, get him.
No, I'm doing so much better in political questions on Jeopardy now than before because I'm forced to, Jesse. Will this allow some closure?
I hope not. No, I'm going to actually go to the Scream Fest. I'll be handing out pacifiers. You'll see that on
You'll be
Water's
encouraging
Word.
it.
Yes, I will. I think the Democrats should change their mascot from a donkey to a baby. Because since the election, they've rioted, they've boycotted, now they're screaming, and the ones that are the adults in the room, like Perez, now they're just cursing. What else are they doing? They're name-calling. The Women's March, they had on those funky costumes.
The little kitty cats.
Yeah, whatever those things.
That's not what they were called, but move on.
What I would do, if I were Donald Trump, I would have a campaign ad, and I would have 29 seconds of these Democrats screaming, and at the end I would say, paid for by Donald Trump for president. That's
a good idea.
That's how he is. He's a little snark fest.
Kimberly,
yes.
I read the Newsweek piece, hysterically sympathetic. It was like a promotional flyer. I mean, there's a lot of people that feel broken, still broken.
But listen, this whole scream fest from all these people, this is nothing new. Remember, they were screaming during the campaign, the election. They were screaming after. I mean, it's unbelievable. Everybody was like become an opera singer at this point. I mean, really, think about it. Weeping uncontrollably, Chelsea Handler and Miley Cyrus.
Oh,
and
yes.
Katy Perry was all busted up over it. Probably couldn't sing a couple songs for a while. So this is something that they actually, I believe, viscerally feel. They're that upset over the whole thing because when you're being programmed over and over again by the mainstream media calling her, President Trump horrific names, the whole thing starts to soak and bake in and you become brainwashed by this biased media coverage.
One last point.
Yeah.
If you're not screaming over Trump, you're not alive.
Well, the thing is, I have to say this.
Some of us
during the
scream with
election, during the primaries, we were screaming about Trump. So I mean, this was something. But then you move on and you get over it, and you find the positive.
No, don't normalize it.
America was the government was not supposed to consume your entire life.
Right.
Like you were supposed
So
to have
true.
a government that allowed the people to be a part of it.
Yes.
But that also, that let you. It was supposed to be freedom.
Let them govern.
It's not supposed to be all-consuming.
Trump should only be like this part of your life, right? And then you have this, if you go all around America, people aren't thinking about him the way the media does and the way these folks do. Why
don't they do a National Day of Service instead of a National Day of Screaming?
Maybe that
Do
is
something fun.
Maybe that is their service.
Wait, can we do a National Day of Impeachment?
Here's the baby food.
By the way, who knew he was such a screamer?
There you go, Juan.
Thank you.
Oh, Kimberly.
You're welcome.
JFK files are about to be released. Will they finally provide some answers? Probably not. Or fuel even more conspiracies? We speculate next.
We speculate.
The final batch of classified documents on the assassination of JFK could be released any moment. President Trump ordering the files to be made public after decades of conspiracy theories. Perhaps these documents will finally settle some unanswered questions. So, one, in 1992, a law was passed saying that on October 26th, 2017, these documents will be released. So you've been waiting ever since. You're a historian. Are you excited?
I love the idea of putting it all out and letting people finally get some sense of completion about this invasion. What do we know and what don't we know? The other day, I think you guys were joking about let out the
Area 51.
Area 51 stuff, But I tell you what, in my world, which is a lot of the civil rights history, a lot of people are looking towards 2027 on the Martin Luther King wiretaps that Robert Kennedy did, under his bed that thought was he was a all that will be out and all the questions about his sex life and all that. In this case, when you read the people who have done extensive work on the JFK assassination, they don't think there's going to be any grand revelation that somehow contradicts the idea that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone shooter. Instead, this is about the CIA and tracking surveillance of Oswald in Mexico and his relationships to not only the Russian government, but specifically the Cuban government in the aftermath of the Cuban Missile Crisis and attempts to assassinate Castro, and whether or not that was connected to his behavior.
When it comes to conspiracy theories, Greg, even if this were to answer all of the questions, conspiracy theorists love for it to keep going, right? They never really want to.
You never find the bottom. There's always a new bottom.
True.
And
so maybe there'll be more.
This release could actually be a decoy, part of an actual larger conspiracy to prevent the real truth from becoming known. I want to add this. I would rather know, and I know we're going to talk about this in the next block, we don't even know what happened in Vegas.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know this is interesting, but this Vegas thing, we don't even know that in the future. What I'm hoping for in the future, because I love surveillance, that everybody is going to have a pet drone. And that pet drone is going to record all your words and deeds. It's going to protect you from all sorts of stuff, and we will never, ever not know anything that happened anywhere ever again.
But we have that, right, Kimberly, with Alexa?
Oh my
Or
God.
Google Home.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, such a big part of my life.
We get the updates and
Like
keep your
6 different
list.
alarms.
Christmas
and
list now.
Christmas list, songs. Alexa, play this song, volume 8. Yeah, I love it. But it's actually very helpful to get a lot of information, and the kids kind of use it with homework and stuff too.
Most governments, Jesse, wouldn't do this. Right?
No,
they,
I mean,
they would say, let's just keep it under wraps.
It speaks to the transparency of this government. I do like how the president tried to take credit for releasing the files, like it was already set in motion to happen, but he made it seem like he was the one that was going to like unlock the vault.
You would do that too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, he takes credit
It's
for
a
anything.
TV show. That's the thing. There shouldn't it be like the vault? When you said vault,
With Geraldo.
No, I mean, yes, President Trump is very good at building expectations and creating these cliffhangers, and then they're finally out, but we still don't know what's in them. So I really don't have anything to say, only that, you know, the shooting of JFK really set this course of the election for Johnson, and then who got us deeply involved in the Vietnam War, which cost thousands and thousands of lives, and then ushered in the presidency of Richard Nixon. So that bullet, I mean, just changed the course of history.
But also was the president when the Civil Rights Act was signed.
Exactly. I mean, just amazing that one bullet can do so much damage.
And also, not to.
But the Civil Rights Act
Civil
was
Rights
good.
No, right. I'm talking about with Vietnam.
I'm glad
obviously.
someone else had to say.
I'm glad we cleared that up.
I gave the side face like,
You
what?
know, we think about when we're watching television, how many weird things have happened this year, and how many weird things have happened in the last 5 years. We saw, you know, Lee Harvey Oswald get shot on live television,
That's
whoever the 50 million people in the United States still alive to remember it. Has anything come close to that? I mean, that is pretty insane. Aside from 9/11, but I mean,
Imagine as the world turns,
Yes.
is on your TV, and then Walter Cronkite comes in and tells you this is happening. That's
right.
what happened.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep you updated on that. But next we'll talk about Las Vegas and the investigation into the massacre there. A lot of new questions. Why did a key witness mysteriously leave the country days after the attack? We'll be right back.
Answered questions nearly 4 weeks after the deadliest shooting in modern American history. A laptop found in the hotel suite of Las Vegas gunman Stephen Paddock is missing its hard drive, according to investigators. They believe Paddock removed it before taking his own life. Now they can't find it. Meanwhile, Fox News has discovered that Jesus Campos, the security guard at Mandalay Bay and the only eyewitness to the shooting, left this country in the days after the massacre. Campos traveled to Mexico, but it's not clear why or why authorities let him go. Jesse?
Well, the hard drive makes no sense. If you don't bring a laptop to a hotel room for days without the hard drive. So we assume he took the hard drive out at some point. Where did he put it? How did he destroy it? If he throws it out the window, I'm sure investigators are combing that place. Yeah. And how else did he dispose of it? This is what adds to the conspiracy theory. As far as him going to Mexico, I would defer to Kimberly. Do investigators allow crucial eyewitnesses to the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history to go flying to other countries right after doing the Ellen show? It's the most bizarre post-shooting situation I've ever seen in the last 10 years since we've been covering this stuff. It doesn't make sense. I don't want to attack the police. It just seems bizarre.
Judge KG.
Yes, well, here's the thing. It sounds like Jesse doesn't think that was a good idea. Yes, let him go. But they can't really compel him to stay and put him under house arrest. So they be, okay, can you be in touch and stay close by, et cetera? They can make that suggestion. But unless there's some kind of wrongdoing or he's been under arrest or investigation more than just, as a material witness. Yeah, I think it's really inappropriate and bizarre. And then I remember he's supposed to be on with Hannity. Then he disappeared. He's in the wind. Then poof, all of a sudden he's shows up on Ellen. Let's just like we all know what went on there. And so we go from that and you're like, okay, the guy went to Mexico. What was he doing in Mexico? I don't know. We don't know.
Didn't he not have
Maybe
the right security guard license as well?
Who did he? Yeah, and who did he have contact with there? I don't know. Did money? Who knows what he was bringing over?
What do you say, Dan?
I don't know. I think that's one of the things that's so strange about Paddock was that he didn't leave any explanation. There's no way to, there's no grievance that we know of. There's nothing. And so we're left with this sadness that about 58 people lost their lives, and you had 400 people injured. Some are still have grievous injuries, and we haven't even really had a chance to keep up with them because pretty much there's no threads. Except for this, which will, hopefully we'll get some answers on it. I don't know, though. It could just go away.
Greg?
I would hate that because all of these loose strands feed into a whole nother conspiracy theory, which will actually enlarge the footprint of the killer. The killer will then be seen as a mythical kind of creature, where, Marilyn Manson is named after Charles Manson. There's going to be people that are going to be interested in this because we never know. The Mexico thing, I think, was probably a reward, a payoff for him to do something. I think he didn't want to do it. Remember, they went on Ellen because he knew that he was going to get softball questions. The thing that gets me, and I hate conspiracy theories. The killer's house was robbed, right?
When?
Right after it happened.
There was a
break-in. Now, who would have the guts to break into that person's house? Somebody who could break into that house to get something. I find that, that's where you start. Who knows? Who was he? Why would somebody break into his house? Makes no sense.
Why is a hard drive missing?
Yeah. But anyway, I would like to think that he was just a psycho and leave it at that. But
yeah, that's
well, the psycho part. I mean, it got some. It turns out his brother's involved in pornography.
Child pornography.
Yeah, it's disturbing. One more thing up next.
It's time now for one more thing, Jesse.
All right, another edition of Mom Text.
Yes.
All right, as many as you know, my mom's a liberal Democrat and sends me texts during the show to critique me. Here we go. What makes you think it's appropriate to viciously disparage, insult, and dismiss a member of Congress? How does that behavior contribute to any sort of civil discourse? Humility helps, character counts. Think about that, Jesse.
Yes.
Next one.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my goodness. And you actually believe Trump is not divisive? You've been swallowed by semantic quicksand.
Yeah.
Kimberly.
Yes.
Next one. Please pronounce your ings. The word is pudding, not puddin'. Pekin, restockin'. And then my favorite, I am honestly concerned that your colleagues have begun to roll their eyes at your diatribe. And the last one, I cannot watch today or tomorrow, so bring back the kind, Jesse.
Oh,
there we go.
She is hard. Oh, my God.
I would love to have her on the show one day as a guest.
Let's not get carried away.
Right, Dana?
Very, very
This
good.
pleases us, Ms. Perino.
Those were great.
All you.
Okay, I'm next. So the Virginia's governor's race, it is just a few days away. It's on November 7th, and it heated up today. So the latest Hampton University poll shows Gillespie 8 points ahead of Northam. He's Gillespie Republican, Northam the Democrat. Although Fox's poll last week had Northam up by 7. So the Real Clear average is at 3.9% within the margin of error. President Trump tweeted support for Gillespie last night, saying Ed Gillespie will be a great governor of Virginia. His opponent doesn't even show up to meetings and work and will be very weak on crime. And Northam then didn't let him get away with that, firing back, I served 8 years in the Army, took care of sick kids, and I'm running to build a more inclusive Virginia. Don't talk to me about showing up. So it's going to be a hot one. November 7th. We'll have the results here.
All right. Okay. One.
So, in case you guys didn't know it, I'm a star. Yes, indeed. Yesterday,
Oh, my God.
a dozen student journalists from Roberto Clemente Middle School in Gaithersburg, Maryland, came to Fox to interview me. They're doing a documentary on prominent Americans, and they came with lights, cameras, put me in the hot seat. They asked, how do you prepare for the 5? How do you write a newspaper column? Why do you write so many books? These are really bright kids. I had a great time. So you should be on the lookout for Sophia, Carolyn, Samantha, Jennifer, Caitlin, Zoe, Melanie, Nicole, and Reva, rising stars on their way to the most selective high schools in Maryland.
Nice. Congratulations. Happy for them.
Well, I'm so glad you filled in for me on that.
Because you were busy.
Yeah, those kids were heartbroken when I said no, but they weren't paying. So let's do this. Red robot news. This is very interesting. You would believe this is a robot that once said that it was going to destroy humanity. It has been granted, it's now the first robot citizen named by Saudi Arabia. They weren't the best on human rights, but they're leading the charge on android rights. Wow. They're just saying that this is the first citizen. This is the first step, by the way, to robot domination. Once, and robots will get rights sooner or later, because if they have a consciousness and they can feel pain, then they should have rights.
Should they let the robot drive?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I thought this was going to be the segment where you said you talked to the sexy robot lady on the internet for a while. Oh, that's another one. Yeah.
That was in the commercial when I was telling you that story. I thought it was a real person.
Now everyone knows. Okay, so this is a very cool story. So Army National Guardsman William Cookson from Salina, Kansas, started painting his house, but before he could finish the job, orders came for him to deploy to Kuwait with his unit. And that's when a group of 40 local college students from the Diesel Technology program jumped into action and donated their time to finish the paint job, and everybody helped donate food and paint and materials to get it done for him.
Great.
This is what we need more of in this country, right? Let's get it together.
Absolutely.
All right, if you could please set your DVRs and never miss an episode of this fantastic show, The Five. Special report is next.
This is a Fox News.